Kladi, welcome back.
Hey everybody, how's it going? Welcome back to another Rework It. I'm Jesus and this is Kladi. Everybody, we see a lot of familiar faces in the chat. We see Sean, Steve, thanks so much for being in the chat, Sam, helping us out. Richard, Andreas, thank you so much for joining us. Again, this is Rework It. This is the show where Kladi and I take your Photoshop, Illustrator, and InDesign files and we rework them live here on Adobe Live. So yeah, today we're going to start with Kladi. Kladi, let us know what we're going to work on today.
Today we're going to start with Illustrator with the work of our lovely Malini. I don't know if she's in the chat right now. I know that it was here with us yesterday, but also want to take occasion to say hi to Michelle, Viola, Andrea Soller, and of course our friend from Brazil.
Nice.
But also we got Steve from New Zealand, Sam Peterson in the chat helping us.
And let us know where you're watching from.
Yes, we're always very excited. Where are we now?
We're in Manchester, UK.
So we are in the same location,
yeah, same
first
location.
of all.
I think this might be the only stream or maybe one of the few streams where there's actually two people in the same room.
Oh yeah, I didn't think about that. So that's really real.
Yeah. By the way, if you're new to Rework It, make sure that you go into I Am Kladi Rework It, iamkladi.com/rework it. That's Kladi's page, and from there you can submit your work. You'll see that big button right in the center that says submit your design. When you click on it, a window will come up and you just fill out all those fields and we can receive your files and then we'll select files to work the show live. So make sure that you go in there now during the show and submit your work. We have a lot of Photoshop files, but that doesn't mean we're deterring you from submitting Photoshop files. We're saying it'll be awesome if you submit more Illustrator and InDesign files. So getting InDesign or Illustrator files, there's more of a chance for you to get featured. So make sure that you submit your work now. But again, feel free to submit your Photoshop files as well.
Very often people ask me what sort of files or what sort of work do we need to submit. Anything. We're not strict. There is no any specific brief. If you want to submit logos, if you want to submit an illustration, a sketch that you're trying to vectorize, or a photography, retouch, composite, a flyer, a book, a menu, anything. We want to keep it real. We're here to help and learn together. As I say all the time, Adobe Live is a safe space to learn together. So open brief, all in my using either Photoshop, Illustrator, and InDesign. If you do use other apps, we always get the option here in the form to specify which app. We can have a better understanding of how your file is structured. And of course you can type in any particular question. So if you do have any specific question, you can also ask in order to solve whatever issue you're facing, or maybe you just want to have a different point of view on your work.
Yeah, definitely. So make sure
open
you
brief.
Submit that now if you like. And we'd be happy to look at your submissions 2 weeks from now, correct? Not next week, but the week after is when we'll be on another Rework It.
And today we're going to be featuring an illustrator, Malini Rao. And as I said, it's not always the case that there is something wrong with your project. It might be that just you want to show off and say hi and just be able to interact with us. And by the way, if you are watching from YouTube, make sure to tune in at Behance. See you in the chat alongside RB, Tom, Sean, Andreas, General Kenobi, and Frank, all the amazing people that are already there in the chat. I hope Malini tunes in soon as well, so we can do the Rework It live.
And while we're waiting, make sure that you subscribe to Malini's Behance.
Oh yes, and that's exactly what I was saying. Like, it's always Malini didn't have any specific issue with her file. We're gonna go and have a look. She's done a beautiful design, but it's good to be able to have a reworking on a different perspective. So make sure to go and give her a follow. Here we go. I just done it myself. Our Behance page is.
I'm just sorry for interrupting.
No
I'm
worries.
so sorry. I'm just wondering if General Kenobi is making a Simpsons reference. Anyway.
Yeah, that's what Sam is asking as well.
Oh, Sam. Oh yeah, Sam asked the same thing. Sorry, you were saying.
And we have John Pesaros from Corfu, Greece. I miss Greece so much. I don't know if you guys know us that well, because Jesus is from a Bay Area. He lives
in San Francisco, California.
San Francisco, California, while I'm Italian, although we are here in Manchester, UK, in Printmysoul Creative Studio. So let's get started. I see anything else? Yeah, another way to access the file is also if you head into my Instagram page at I Am Kladi, the link tree, which is the link located in my bio, and from there you can see the first tab is the one dedicated to submit your rework it. So you have different point of access to submit your work, and we look forward to see all your work in order to rework it here in 2 weeks. We jump into Illustrator. Just yesterday, 2 of my courses have been released on LinkedIn Learning.
It's exciting.
So there is an Illustrator and an InDesign quick start courses. So again, you got the link there into the link tree, and also you can find a lot of freebies on my website as well. But it's time to focus on Malini work, and let's go. I'm actually gonna look for the folder that she provided us with, and because she also not only created the artwork but also used Photoshop in order to create a lovely mock-up. So as you can see, there is nothing wrong with the work. She used a lovely combination of typography. We can see what's going on?
I'm laughing at what Steve wrote in the comment.
So Steve is saying that he's totally convinced that Jesus is a spy. The UK is totally locked down, yet there he is, flying from San Francisco like it's no big deal. Yes, how do you do that? How do you do that?
Very carefully.
So Kladi's last name was Printmysoul. Sean, my designer name is Kladi Printmysoul. Kladi is my first name. Printmysoul is my design studio. So I guess some people just know the studio. Some people know me because I'm the founder of Studio Printmysoul. So I think Kladi Printmysoul brings the 2 entities together because everything is in here. But let's go back to Malini's work. So I just wanted to give a feedback and a critique. In this case, is a positive critique. We're going to go into the file and find a way in which we can tweak it as well and enhance it. But I really want to stress the fact that rework it is not only if you have an issue or mistake, but simply to show off your art. And that's the case for Malini. Something that I really like and I always advise to do, and she did it brilliantly, is to find contrast in the typeface. So I'm just going to go ahead and open the Illustrator file so we can see that in app. That's a final version of the file. And as you can see, we have the leaf illustration, and then we have the typeface, which she left live, which is a more of a script font, and is alternated and put together with a font that is more of a all caps display font. So we see also contrast not only between the script and the all caps, but we also see contrast in the curviness of the script and then the corner of the other font that is there. So this is amazing. Only 2 fonts. She didn't go crazy. She literally followed the rules by the book of good design, and don't underestimate foundation. I always say that foundation rules are there to be broken for sure. If that's what you go for it. But in this case, she just kept it simple. 2 typefaces, same color, in order to create a one single package that can be read much easy. But also she played with the contrast of the fonts. So high five, Malini, you've done a fantastic job with that. One thing that I will suggest though, and I'm gonna get a little technical here, is the layers structure. So if we navigate into the layers panel here on the top of the workspace, we can see the way that Malini has created her file. We can see a pattern layer, and I'm gonna zoom out into the actual canvas so you can see all the documents that are there, and I'm gonna go ahead and start to hide those layers. So we have one pattern, which is really just the background of the pattern, and then we have another layer which is supposed to hold the pattern, but it must be something below that. So it doesn't really make sense what is here. Looks like it's a duplicate here. And then we have a layer called elements, which are, I believe, the original illustration that she was drawing. Then we have a version 1, which are experimental poster or flyers, and then there is the version 2, which is the final version. Nothing wrong with having the file, the layers created like so. I just don't find it particularly useful in the way that you work with your file. Layer stack are very important for layering content. So not only to creating groups of content like Shadier version 2, version 1, or the pattern, but what I would have done here, for example, and I'm just gonna go ahead and, I'm sorry Malini, but I'm just gonna disrupt the order of your file completely. So first of all, as you can see, everything is very spread out. So I have to zoom in and zoom out and really navigate around the page. So the first thing that I will do is click on the artboard tool, and I'm gonna start to bring all these elements together. So especially when we create elements that belong to an illustration, it's nice to be able to have it next to the artboard that you're working with, so you can just nice and easy navigate between one artboard to the other without getting lost and zooming in, zooming out, and zooming out. Also, here looks like we have two different artboards for the same artwork, so I'm just gonna select one and delete it just to make it a little bit easier. And again, if you want to access, oops, Siri, we don't need you. If you want to access again the artboard tool, it's here at the bottom of the toolbar, or you can use the shortcut Shift O to access the artboard tool. And we can go ahead and move the pattern. In this case, the pattern is maybe located horizontally, and look what happened here. It looks like this element is locked inside the layer, so it looks like it's over here, and that's the reason why it's not copied. Here it is. So I'm gonna press Command Z to undo, make sure that I unlock the layer. If that ever happens to you, that you move an artboard and there is some content that doesn't move around, that's because most likely the layer is locked. Here it is. So it's probably, let's see, here it is. I need to undo, and then I need to unlock it, and now we can move it all together. Here it is. So that was the issue here, and hopefully if we have time, we're gonna be able to go over how to create a pattern. Let me know in the chat if that's something that you want to go over. And Steve, I completely agree. Those are absolutely fun. She's done a fantastic job. I love all these little faces. Very cute. Very, very fun.
They're not all happy.
Oh yeah, we got like a
worried one.
A worried lemon. Super cool. Oh no, we got how do you call it in American? Is all I remember is the Italian name, aubergine. So aubergine?
An eggplant?
Eggplant, yeah. That is like also pretty sad. There we go. In Italiano is melanzana. So that's what I was able to say.
That today. Lemon means business is what Steve wrote in the chat. Or no, Sam wrote that in the chat.
So again, my first advice will be to make sure that when you create your artboard, you just keep everything within a single area rather than keep everything spread out. And then when we talk about the actual creation of the layers, what I would have done here, and I realized that there are some elements in the layers that are locked, because when I went to check the actual file, the artboard, here it is. We got some random, oh, it looks like it's the background. But you know, look what I'm doing here. I'm literally going through these layers to try to find where the background is. And that's exactly where I'm heading with all this conversation about layers. So the way that I would have structured this file in terms of layer is to have all these work in progress feature in one layer on its own. So I'm gonna delete all of that and just create one new layer. I'm gonna put it on the top, and I'm gonna call this one WIP, which stands for work in progress. You can call it sketch, you can call it version 1, whatever you prefer. But in here, I'm going to place everything that is something that is at the very first rough stage of a design. And then I'm gonna really use the other layers to start to layer up my file. So if that's our final illustration, then I will go ahead and create, when I work with illustration in particular, I start always with 3 different layers, a background, a middle ground, and a foreground. So I'm able to navigate and classify elements in order, and also in the order in which they have to show up in the content, because remember, the order of the layer stack matters, and the layers that are located on top, the contents and the graphics that are located on top will always show in front, so that always matter. And I will start by creating a background layer, and in here I can start to place all the backgrounds here of my final. So I'm gonna press copy, then head to the background, and it looks like we have some extra backgrounds here. Go back to the layer and press Command F to paste in front and to paste in place. Let's see what happened here. Pasting at the right place. I'm just gonna work with one, otherwise, here we go. And again, what's happening here is of course is pasting on top of the other graphics. So all we have to do for now is to toggle off the visibility of the layer, and then we can move on and use another layer, which I will call illustrations or graphics, which is basically all the illustrated element. And then I'll create another layer, which I will use for my text. That will allow me to lock the entire layer only at once, and in this case I would have no problem to go ahead and search within multiple layers. What I'm doing here is again simply copying, heading to the correct layer, pasting it, and then I have full control of my file. Command C to copy, head to the correct layer, Command F to paste some front, and here it is. So here now I have my background, my graphics, and my text. And when I start to work on my design, I can simply lock the background layer and I can start to work in a more organized way that focuses on my final version and allows me to move around my artboard without creating a mess with my file. Because here, when I was trying to implement and rework the file, I was really struggling. And as you've seen before, you know, the previous version 1 had different version of the background that were in all the other graphic elements, so it really took me time to find them in order to unlock them. Well, here I'm gonna have full control on all the background because I know that they're all gonna be located in the background layer, and there is also not gonna be conflict in terms of moving things around or overlapping items. So that's the very first tip that I wanted to share. Be mindful with the use of your layers. Second was just an idea of bringing a little bit of contrast in color. The blues, the greens, and the yellow all set almost a monotone mood. So I was really trying to use this wonderful, I'm gonna go ahead and copy this lovely background. By the way, for those of you that don't know it, if you select an artboard and you see when you set an artboard is selected, it has a little bit of a thicker black outline, and you copy an element. If you then select another artboard, so you see now the outline here is white and this one became black, and press Command F, the document will be, the graphic will be placed exactly in the same place as it was in the other artboard. So we can literally paste in place and duplicate locations in multiple artboards here, which I think is pretty fantastic. And of course, as you can see here, the graphics are not sitting on the correct layer, so we will have to move quickly here, making sure that everything is appropriately located. And I believe that there is some text here as well. Yes, I'm gonna go ahead and copy it real quick into the text layers. So again, we go back into our structure. Now again, all the backgrounds can be locked, and we're gonna lock the text as well, so we can just play with our illustration. If I click and drag to select the items, the only thing that will be selected are our illustrations. So what I was gonna do here is again bring a little bit of this lovely character, and I'm not gonna spend too much time because I really want to focus into the pattern and see if there is any question. What is the best way to isolate the final artboard in order to export it for print? So the best way is to either put all the work in progress. So after you worked in different layers, put all the work in progress in one single layer like I did before. So then you can simply take it off. And when I say take it off, I mean hide it, hide the visibility by toggling the little eye icon. So let's say that this is a work in progress as well. I'm just gonna go ahead, copy it, and head into my work in progress folder and then hide it. So in this case, I only have the 2 final versions showing. Another wonderful way of working is to use trim view. So let's say that you have all your work in progress and a little bit of a messy file. Now Malini is very organized, but it does happen in Illustrator that you end up with scattered things around the artboard and different elements, and maybe your director or your client works in, and you just want to show how neat and clean you are and just focus on the design. Well, something that is quite new, I think is 1 year old in here in Illustrator, or top 2 years old, is the trim view. So if you add under view and then select trim view, basically what happens, Illustrator trims away everything that is not inside an artboard. So here it is, you just have your final showing nice and beautiful in here. And also you have the presentation mode which even further allows you right away to display as if you are presenting to your client. You don't need to create a PDF, and you can just simply toggle within the artboards. So maybe imagine that you have different version, you can just toggle in presentation mode. And we are still in Illustrator. That's not a PDF. We haven't left Illustrator. We just went into presentation mode. So 3 mode, presentation mode, and group all your work in progress in a folder that you can hide nice and quick.
That one's super cool. Let us know in the chat if you knew that one. I didn't know that one.
It's quite a new one, but it's very, very awesome. So again, one suggestion would have been to bring in all this lovely fruit. And again, just little details like I started to do here to bring a little bit of accents of color and create a little bit more of a vibe and a mood and give your eye a little bit of a distraction. So it's not so plain. But again, that all depends of your direction. If Malini direction was to create something that it was completely relaxing, then something that is monotone reflects that brief completely. I'm a little bit more of a fizzy, bubbly personality, so of course I think of all this little fruit coming out will be nice and cool. And time is about to run out, so I wanted to show you 2 more things. Another option was to find a different arrangement for these lovely graphics that she has created with the plants. So I'm gonna go ahead and copy the background into the background layer on this other file as well. So what I was doing here, and again I was just starting to play a little bit with a graphic, and I'm gonna go ahead and make sure that all of this now sits into the correct layer, so we keep everything nice and neat. Because look what happened, all the text got selected now, which is not what I wanted, and that's exactly why I enjoy working with different layers, so I can be in control on my file. See, I don't even know where that to be is at. Something very useful is that you can usually locate the layer by the color of the bounding box. As you can see, the color of the bounding box changes and it changes accordingly to the color of the respective layer. Here it is. So we can lock our text here, and hopefully we can just have a little bit of fun with our graphics. Fantastic. I'm gonna copy them into our graphics, and as you can see, we are in an orange layer, so all the bounding box is orange. And again, so what I was suggesting here is maybe to find contrast into in the illustration as well. So instead of having everything balanced top to bottom, starting to create some contrast by really using the corners here. So pretty much I'm just gonna replicate this one just because I want to show you more cool stuff. So of course I will strongly suggest to create a different composition. I repeat, I'm just using this composition right now just because of lack of time, but that's the direction that I was going. So really trying to create a contrast in terms of bringing the corners in. And another thing that I wanted to show you, in this case I'm going to use the libraries. All I've done is went into Adobe Stock and search with the keyword tropical, making sure that from your filters we are selecting photos, and I wanted to bring a different color palette because it's always nice to see different options in different colors. So I found this photo, which is pretty awesome. I really like the pinks and the aqua colors. Click and drag. In this case I'm not going to and we're still in trim mode, by the way. If you see, if that also ever happens to you, the image doesn't display, but you see the bounding box, is because remember we're in trim mode, so we only the elements that are present inside the artboard are visible. In order to go back to normal view, simply select view and then click on trim view, and we are back into our normal preview mode. So as I was saying, I just want to lift real quick the colors of this photo, and I can do so by clicking and dragging on my graphics and then going to edit and select edit colors and recolor artwork. During this last Adobe Max, and funny enough I'm wearing the t-shirt today as well, Illustrator has launched this new amazing rethought and modernized recolor panel, which features this amazing color theme picker. All you have to do is to select your graphic, again, edit colors, recolor artwork, and click once on the color theme picker, and then select any image that you like. It could be a vector, it could be a photo, and as you can see, Illustrator will lift the colors and apply them to your graphics. Now you see that the only things that is changing here are the leaves, because remember, I have locked the layers for the background and the text. If you wanted to make sure that you include all the elements, unlock the layers and just select them. So anything that is selected will be treated with the recolor. Something super cool is also that not only allows you to pick the color, but then you can distribute the colors. So in this case, it looks like there is a lot of this dark purple, while I want more of this beautiful blue to come through, and you can go ahead and have a play. Also, if what you like of this image, of the image that you selected, is perhaps just the combination of colors, but you're not keen on the hues, you can use these handles here to move the colors together. So what it does, it keeps the same relationship within colors. So we're gonna have the same level of opposite. The basically all these little color spots will remain in place and linked to each other, but then you can rotate them and also change the brightness. Is that correct, Jesus? The hue? No, we'll change the brightness when
you're dragging the brightness.
Yeah,
I'm sorry, I
yeah.
didn't see that.
I just wanted to double check. So maybe we can introduce some yellow if you want to stay into the yellow. So I just mentioned the hue because of course that's when you drag around, we change the hue. But if we start to move the color spot from outside to the inside, we will change the brightness. Of course, you can also head into the advanced option and then start to double click on each single color if you want and if you need to, and we can start to go and select and change each single color individually. But that's something that was already available. So I really wanted to show this new way with the wonderful recolor panel. Do I have 3 minutes for the pattern? I'm gonna do that fast, but I think it's worth it, especially with this super cute fruit. So I can see that what Malini has done is created this pattern that is almost like a rectangle that fits in the same space. And despite the fact that that's a lovely way of creating a pattern, it gives you this sort of tile feel because you're really constraining your illustration and your pattern. As you can see, you start to have these lines, and it's just basically a replica of this rectangle. Something that is quite cool, very fast way of we keep it fast, to create a pattern is to start by selecting the artboard tool and click to create an artboard. Then press the return key or enter on Windows, and here you can start to input the size. So for example, we can do 300 pixels by 300 pixels, and I usually work with a square. Now I'm gonna go ahead and click on OK in order to change. We're gonna perhaps rename it. We can name the artboard pattern and then click on OK. And here it is. That's our pattern, the tile that is gonna work to create our pattern. Then I'm gonna go ahead and start to lift this lovely illustration. Shift Command G to ungroup because I can tell that she very neatly grouped them. And I'm gonna go ahead and just select this little cherry and maybe this. Make it a little bit smaller. Let's find a smaller element over here. This little leaf over here, and that will do for now. So I'm gonna always start with one of the sides. Usually I use the left side and the top. Then once you start to place your element, what you want is that in order to have a seamless pattern, whatever sits outside, whatever graphic is left outside, has to repeat itself on this side of the artboard. Well, how do you do that? Very simple. Click and drag to select the graphic, and right click and select transform, and then move. You can also access the move panel by selecting Shift Option M on a Mac. That's Shift Control M on a Windows, and the move panel will come up. Now you'll be able to move, in this case, horizontally, because we're trying to flip it on the other side. And remember, we know that the square is 300 pixels. So all we have to do is to shift it of 300 pixels. In this case, we don't have to shift it vertically. So I'm going to press 0 for the vertical settings, and make sure that you click on preview so you see that you're doing exactly what you're looking to do. And then instead of pressing OK, if you press OK, you'll just move them. If you press copy, you will then create an exact copy that is also moved. And then you can do the same with the top. For example, we can go ahead, maybe let's select the lemon, the minced business, just to have a little bit of a different shape here. And maybe we can also tilt it a little to keep it fun. And I'm gonna do the same, but in this case, reflecting vertically. So I'm gonna go ahead and use Shift Command M to access the move tool, then 0 horizontally, and in this case we're gonna flip it vertically. So the movement will be of 300 pixels vertically. Again, click on preview to make sure that that's exactly what we want, and copy, not okay, copy. So we have an exact copy. If by any chance our cherry were up high, so going outside the vertical border, we would have to flip them as well. So anything that is outside the artboard vertically or horizontally needs to be flipped, so we have the seamless pattern. And now that's where the majority of people tell me, what do I do now? Because the way that you create swatches is usually by simply dragging them into the swatches panel, but in this case it wouldn't work. So look what happened here. If I simply click and drag this composition and then apply it to a shape, a rectangle, we have a little bit of a mess. We don't have the seamless pattern that we were looking for. I'm just gonna make it bigger, and here it is. So in order to create the seamless pattern, what's really important to do is to create a bounding box. And bounding box needs to be a transparent square of the same side of the artboard. So go ahead and select the rectangle tool over here from the toolbar, then click and intersect it right away. You can see that the beautiful smart guide tell you that you are placing it exactly at the origin of your artboard, and create a square of 300 by 300 because we set already the artboard at that size. So that will be super useful. Now make sure that you go ahead into your swatches fill control here at the bottom of the toolbar and press the backslash.
Which one?
This one over here.
That one there.
I'm having English issues lately, guys.
That one's a forward slash.
Forward slash, or click on this little white icon with a red forward slash that will allow you to have a transparent background. So we want to make sure that we have a transparent background and a transparent stroke. Then let's head to our layer, and we want to make sure that this rectangle here sits at the very bottom of our layer stacks here. So of course we were in the working, it would have been smart to create a new layer. So I started by giving a tip and then not following it myself. That often, very often, because look here, we have a lot of different graphics coming up. So let's actually do that. Let's move everything into a new layer, because otherwise it's just a little bit silly. So I'm gonna go ahead and copy, and I know, Jesús, that I'm taking your time, but I'm gonna promise that I'm gonna be fast with this. So what I did is to create a new layer here for our pattern tile, and let's make sure that we name it so we know what it is. And here I can easily bring the rectangle that we created at the bottom of the layer stack. Here it is. So that's important in order to create your pattern. Now you can click and drag and move the entire shape, including the rectangle, and as you can see, it will be a different effect, and hopefully our lovely pattern is there, and we created this fun seamless pattern. Now remember, if you want to add a background, and this is the last thing I promised, head here to your rectangle tool, and then you can duplicate it. So Command C, Command F, and again make sure that that sits at the bottom of on top of the transparent one. And what I'm saying here is that you need to make sure that you create two square. In that case, you always need to have this transparent square. So if I want to apply, I'm just gonna use this blue. If you want to apply, and you can see them here from the layer, a color, you still need to have that transparent bounding box, because that's telling Illustrator, hey, that's where we are gonna break this pattern. And again, in this case, all you have to do is select all, click and drag and add into your swatches panel. And I'm gonna go ahead and create a copy of the rectangle. And here it is. We also have a copy with a blue background.
And they're calling them unhappy lovely patterns.
Oh.
Because they're unhappy. Well, most of them, 75% of them, or 66%. I'm sure Sean did the math.
That's fantastic. Right, so hopefully you had fun. Malini, thank you so much for providing such a wonderful file. I definitely had fun, and it was fantastic to have a play, and hopefully will be useful, and I look forward to hear your feedback and if you implement any of these reworking technique. But it's time to jump into Illustrator.
Yeah, we're gonna jump into
Photoshop.
Into
sorry.
Photoshop. Yeah, we were just in Illustrator. We're gonna jump right into Photoshop.
And I'm gonna have to move. I'm so sorry, but I got a new pillow, but it's really
pillow.
hurting. Here it is. I'm gonna show it to everyone. So because I spent a lot of time on the computer, I ended up, it's green, so we cannot really see it. But that's what I needed to move. Here we are. Thank you. Sorry, sis.
Okay, so we're in Photoshop now, and we're gonna look at Chandam Goswami's, I hope I'm getting his name correctly, Photoshop file. His file is this really cool levitation composite. You can see that there's this light beaming from the top and it's picking up the subject. So I don't know if he's getting kidnapped by aliens or what the situation is here, but he has a really cool composite, and he has check layers. We've talked about check layers before on Rework It. They are either adjustment layers or layers that allow you to check for imperfections in the composite. He has this check layer, which is checking for the color ambient of the scene, which is a good one. We might talk a little bit more about that. I don't know if we have time. We only have about 20 minutes to talk about this composite, but it looks like that's the only check he has. Yeah, that's the only check he has, the ambient color check layer. And actually, you know what, since I'm talking about it now, why don't I show what that is? So a ambient check layer is an adjustment layer that allows you to see the hues and tones that are found around the composite, and if they match, then the composite should in theory match. And the way that you create one is by creating a solid color fill layer. You can make it a gray that is about 50%. You don't have to get it exact. I'm at 45% now, and that'll work just fine. So I'll press OK. Then switching the luminosity, changing the blending mode to luminosity should get you this result. This will make it so that all the luminance values in the image are at that 45% value. In other words, you don't have a lot of variance in tone, just variance in hue, and that allows you to see the colors that are in the scene, and you can see if they match in the composite. It's a little hard to see, so you can create a hue and saturation adjustment layer and increase the saturation, and you can see exactly, you can see the tones that are used in the image. So there's a lot of blues and magentas and reds, and obviously the beam is a different tone, so it doesn't have to match, but everything around there matches. So that is how a check layer would work, and I think that Chandan did an excellent job in creating one of these.
Would it be amazing if Chandan is actually the person in the photo?
Yeah, you know what, I don't know if it's him. I'm not sure. Let me see if it says right here where it says subject. Let me look at the original file. Could not edit. Oh, the layer is locked. I'm like, wait, why can't I edit this? The layer is locked. You just have to unlock it. So when this happens, you see how like I'm trying to unlock this, but it's not really working. That is because the group is locked, not just the layer. So let me double click on this and click shift. I'm just trying to see if I could determine if this was like a, oh my god, I'm forgetting the name of that website. It gives you the free stock photos. Unsplash, thank you. I was maybe hoping to see like an Unsplash or something logo on here. So I'm not sure if this is Chandan, but this is the original image. So it might be him, I don't know. You might let us know in the chat if that's him.
That would be super fun.
But anyway, the point is that he has all these different layers, and I think the composite actually would look much better if he took a different approach to creating the light beam. To be frank with you, Chandan, I really like this color composition better with the blues and then the oranges of your skin tone or the subject skin tone. I think it stands out more, but no problem making
more cinematic orange.
Yeah, more cinematic, the blue orange teal, or the blue orange teal orange effect. But I really think that we do need to work on the light. One of the ways that I would create a light would be by just creating a new layer and going into filter, render, and selecting fibers, making sure that black and white is your foreground color. That's very important. And you can create this effect here, and you can adjust the intensity and the strength of the fibers that are going to be generated, or you can just click on randomize and just get different results. Totally up to you. But then once you have something like this, you can press Control-T, Command-T to transform, and then you can select perspective and scale this in so the light's coming from above. and then maybe distort it now so you can click and drag this and place it into position, and then maybe also do a little bit of perspective here, so something like this. And obviously you can fine tune it as you need, and you can get something that looks like that.
Right from a spaceship.
Yeah, like from a spaceship or something like that. And it looks like I was a little heavy-handed with that that perspective, but that's okay. I just move it to the left so that it covers the subject. What I can do now actually is just maybe scale it a little bit more so it's a little bit wider. And what I'll do now is I'll soften up the edges. I'll create an layer mask, and I'll select the brush tool. And with the brush tool, I can paint with black. Notice that I have a hard brush, so it's going to create these hard edges. That's not what we want. So I want to soften it up. To soften it up, you can go into the drop down here and reduce the hardness, or even much faster, use the keyboard shortcut. Shift left bracket key on the keyboard will soften it up so you can paint soft edges. So that's the difference between a hard brush and a soft brush. So let me undo those brush strokes because I don't need them. And here's another trick. You can click once, hold shift, and click again, and Photoshop will draw a straight line between the 2 points that you clicked on, which I think is pretty cool. And let me just get rid of that tip here that is not looking very good. And I can click and drag here at the bottom, and then maybe drag this up like so. And I think that was not tall enough, so maybe I'll make it just a little bit taller so it actually hits the ground and still make it a little bit wider. You can always fine tune this. Next, you can change the blending mode to something like screen. I think screen might work, or you can try some of the other ones like soft light or linear light or any of those, but I think screen in this case will work. And of course, reduce the opacity accordingly. And you can always go in here and make other adjustments to make this more realistic. Like you can create a hue and saturation layer on top of that, clip it to the layer below by clicking on this icon, checking colorize, which will make the image the color that you select. In this case, we can select, like, I think he had it's like a, if I'm not mistaken, like a purple color originally, so I'll try to keep the original intent that he had. And I can just keep adjusting the actual beam. I don't think the beam looks very good, so I'm just going to I was gonna do an adjustment on the layer, but I don't want to destroy the pixel, so instead what I'll do is create an adjustment with a hue and saturation adjustment layer. I'm sorry, with an adjustment layer using curves, and I can add contrast to those curves and then try to make this look a little bit more realistic. Something else that you can do is select that layer, the beam layer, hold shift and click on the layer on top, press Ctrl G, Command G to put it into a group. I'll name the group beam. We always want to be organized and give names to groups and layers. And I'm going to create an I keep calling it an adjustment layer, a layer mask.
You've been working a lot of adjustment layers lately?
Yeah, I have adjustment layers in my mind. Create a layer mask. And with this layer mask, I'm going to go into filter, render, and clouds, just so that it breaks up the beam. And I can also add more contrast.
Because that's what I was thinking, like to add some sort of texture or like atmosphere to fade it a little. And so I think that's a great idea.
Yeah, so I'm just breaking up the beam so it's not consistent, like so.
And can you just repeat that again? I just see that there was a question about it. So if you can repeat, or did you apply this?
Yeah, you can apply this. You can create a layer mask. It creates a layer mask in the group. You can go into filter, render, clouds, and now the clouds are applied to the layer mask. The clouds look like this.
Fantastic.
If you hold Alt and Windows Option in the Mac, you can see what the clouds look like. And I can go into levels, and then I can give more contrast. So now that white areas will reveal the beam effect. Alt and Windows Option in the Mac, and click on the layer mask thumbnail to show or hide those areas. Something that you should consider doing is also making sure that the scene fits the composite. And what I mean by that, and actually, you know what? Now I think I went a little heavy-handed again on those beams.
Too much contrast.
Yeah, so let me undo that to like the way I had it originally. I like that better. But anyway, what I was gonna say is, now we gotta make sure that this beam is interacting with the image. So we gotta do a couple things. We have to make sure that we have light that's hitting the ground. So I'll quickly show you a technique. You can just create something that looks like this and maybe bring it in a little lower, create a new layer on top of all this other stuff, fill it with white, but I'm going to blur it. So I'll go into filter, blur, Gaussian blur, and blur this. Might be a little too much, maybe something like this. I can double click to the side of the layer to bring up the layer style window, and I can go into the blend mode drop down and set this to color dodge. With the color dodge blending mode, if I uncheck this, notice how the layer now changes. The blend changes when you uncheck transparency shapes layers with color dodge, and you can create this highlight effect. And using the fill, not the opacity, the fill, you can adjust the intensity of that. So it's really cool. So it's like this really bright light hitting the ground. It might be a little too bright. What I'm gonna do is I'm actually gonna paint over that beam a little bit since I'm a little unhappy.
And there should be like a little shadow in the middle where the body is on top of the beam.
Yeah, you can add. He actually has a shadow in there, so I was trying to blend both the shadow and the highlight in there. And in this case, you know what? I think well, first of all, I'm painting on the wrong layer. I'm painting on the actual layer, not the layer mask. So let me paint on the layer mask. And actually, in this case, I think it might look better if the highlight is below the beam. There we go, like that. And then adjust the highlight from here. I think that might look a little bit better. And obviously, you can keep adding highlights to the beam itself on the same layer. You can paint with white. Obviously, that's too intense, but I think you'll get the idea that you can paint in different areas and then adjust the intensity. Also, using the very same technique, what you can do is go on top of your subject, and he did a good job masking it. That's great. So I'm going to create a new layer, clip it to the layer below, do exactly the same thing, change the blending mode to color dodge, double click to the side of the layer and uncheck transparency shapes layer. And what I can do now is I can come in here and I can paint over the areas where the light is hitting him. And I know this is not looking very good, but you get the idea. You can spend some time painting over these areas that are making contact with his skin because the light is hitting his skin. So I would add those highlights. I think I did a good job in that really particular cool, area. Yeah.
But, you know, it reminded me of the movie Soul.
Oh, the movie Soul, yeah, from Pixar that just came out not too long ago, yeah, which you can watch on Disney now, I believe. Yeah, it's a little bit of, it has a little bit of that movie Soul in here. I can see that. But anyway, as you can see, you gotta take your time. I'm using a mouse. If you have a Wacom tablet or something like that, obviously that will be much better. But just take some time thinking where the light would hit. If this was a real person floating and the light was hitting him, so make sure that you spend time going in here and getting all the details. Obviously, and we have less than 20 minutes now. I guess we have like 5 or so minutes, maybe a little longer. But you know, just spend some time going and making sure that all these highlights.
Exactly 7 minutes in about 10 seconds.
7 minutes and 10 seconds. That's great. But yeah, so just keep adding these highlights. Don't forget the shoes, and I'm trying to add as much as I can so it looks good in the least amount of time as possible. And obviously, once you get to this point, you can adjust the fill so that the highlights are not so strong. Totally up to you. And also, if you want to, you can apply a color to these highlights. Image, adjustment, hue and saturation, colorize, and then select a color for the highlights. You do have to make them a little bit darker so that the color applies. So I'm bringing down the lightness. See that? See how now we have blue on there, but I guess we need a little bit more of like magenta or something like that. So you decide, but obviously now we have highlights on here. And of course, adjust the fill intensity to add or reduce the highlights that are hitting the subject. I think we have just enough time for that. So if the light is coming down and hitting the ground, we also need light that hits the walls. So to make it easier on myself, I'll press Control J, Command J on the Mac to duplicate, Command T to transform, or Control T on Windows. I don't know why I use the Mac keyboard shortcut if I'm on a Windows, but anyway. Whoops, I didn't mean to flip that vertically, but it doesn't matter. I want to flip it like this. And I guess I might need to maybe make it a little bit whiter, maybe even blur it a little bit. Filter, blur, Gaussian blur, and blur it. Because now there's like this light that's hitting there, so it will probably hit these areas as well. So you kind of have to match it in here as well. And I'll hold Alt on Windows, Option on the Mac, and drag it over to the other side, right about here, so that these areas are also illuminated. And of course, you gotta spend some time fine-tuning the intensity of the light that is hitting that person. To be frank with you, I'm not quite happy with the intensity of this light, so I'll probably just do like a really quick hack to just brighten all this up. And what I'll do is I'll just create a new adjustment layer on top of all of this. I'll make it a curves adjustment layer, and I'll just increase the brightness a little bit, like so. So it's just a little more noticeable. If you don't want the edges so sharp, you can also go into the feather and right-click and feather. In this case, we didn't really need to do that. Not right-click and feather, just drag and feather. Sorry, just drag and feather. And this is the result that you get. It's a very interesting result. It looks like we still have a couple more minutes, so there's a few more things that I wanna show before we get
I also
going.
have a little request.
Yeah.
The shadow, the light, the highlights on the side, aren't they a little bit too tall? Because the light is coming down.
Yeah, definitely. You're definitely right. They're a bit too tall. So what you can do is just make them a little bit shorter. And all I did there was press Control T, Command T to transform, and I made them shorter. So you can definitely adjust them. And you know what? Maybe even this bottom one, I'll do a filter, blur, motion blur, and I'll just make the angle 0, and I can increase the distance a little bit, and it just kind of, you see how it's making it less intense, but it's making it longer.
Yeah.
So before and after, and I know it's less intense, but another way of doing it would be by just making it a little bit wider, and maybe reduce the intensity. Totally up to you.
Very cool. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. The last thing that I'll do is I'll select the bottom layer, hold Shift, and put everything. You know what? Never mind, because since we have so many layers, Smart Object probably wouldn't be the best option. I've done this before. You probably have seen it. Control Alt Shift E, Command Option Shift E in the Mac to create a composite layer out of everything below. In other words, we're copying and pasting everything into one layer just with one shortcut, and then I can call this Final, and we can make this into a Smart Object. That way we apply all the final changes onto that layer, and it's editable. And if I decide to change the composite, all I have to do is replace the contents of the Smart Object. But anyway, I'm gonna go into Filter, Camera, Raw, Filter, and from here I can do some finishing touches. For example, I can go into the effects, and I can add a little bit of a vignette. I could also add a little bit of grain to make the whole image come together. So if you ever blur anything in Photoshop, or when you're compositing, sometimes things don't look right. I think that adding a little bit of grain makes it look more realistic, because now it's behaving more like a camera. See how this is just too blurry? You would never get something so blurry with without grain in a real camera. So just just a tiny little bit. It doesn't have to be too much. I think that it makes a big difference. And also, starting in Photoshop 2021, we have a brand new color grading tool, and you can color grade from here. So maybe we can add a little bit of blue or whatever color you want to the shadows, like so.
So amazing.
Super cool. And then maybe for the highlights, we'll add, I don't know, like just a tiny little bit of yellow, not too much. And for the midtones, we can even add a little bit more of that magenta color that you had going on there, Chandan, and maybe create more of a, what do they call it? Steampunk. You know what I'm talking about? No, not steampunk. What do they call it? Oh my God, futuristic.
Oh yeah, no, you mean yes. No, cyberpunk.
Thank you. Cyberpunk.
By the way, since we got almost a minute, and I would like to remind everyone how to submit their work. So if you have any finishing comments on this, and then we jump onto the website.
We can jump onto the website.
Very well done, Chandan. You've done an amazing work.
So iamkladi.com slash rework it is a website.
Yes.
Slash rework it is a website. And from here, all you need to do is make sure that you click on this. Well, first of all, sign up to Kladi's email newsletter and then submit your work.
You don't have to submit that, especially I think it was useful if you're interested in branding. Is a full, at the moment I'm giving away a full branding kit.
There you go.
But that's a different thing. So on iamkladi.com/reworkit.
Yeah, you can enter in your email, add your file, your name, your Behance profile, so we could feature you. Chandan actually didn't have anything on his Behance profile and didn't want us to share it until he uploads more work. So please upload more work, Chandan. So maybe next time we can feature your Behance profile. But if you want to have your Behance profile featured, make sure that you submit your profile on here and also agree to the data consent and let us know which apps you use. Make sure that you the primary file is an Illustrator, Photoshop, or a design file. That does not mean that you cannot use other apps. For example, one of the examples that I've used earlier was that you could have started your work, say on Blender, a 3D application, import it into Photoshop, and then make a composite out of it. Yeah. That would work. So that would be okay. So in situations like that, the final output needs to be either a Photoshop file, Illustrator file, or InDesign file. And
so we can rework it.
Yeah, so we can rework it and let us know any specific questions or issues in this box and then submit. So make sure that you submit your work now. I think that we will not be back until 2 weeks from now.
The 20th. So 20th and 21st of January, we will be back to rework your work. And unfortunately, it's time to say goodbye right now.
Time to say goodbye. All right, everybody. Well, thank you so much for watching. Make sure you stick around for more Adobe Live. We'll talk to you guys again soon. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll be back on the 20th. Bye, everybody.
Bye. Thank you.